Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to YITCON Part 2, YIT Harder. My name's Adam Spencer. I'll be your MC for this session on future leadership. A big hello to everyone here at the Forum in Melbourne, but also a big hello to everyone at our streaming venues around the world. We've got a couple of universities in India, Ganpat University and Graphic Era University. We've got the University of Malaysia in Sarawak, they're on the line as well. The Sri Lankan Institute of IT, not only streaming, already sending us messages, hello to them, and every Australian state and territory represented as well. So from here, in the Forum, let's send a big round of applause to everyone watching around the world. Come on, let's say hi, yeah? Great stuff. Now, for those of you at the satellite events, you'll see a Twitter feed on the bottom of your screen, and you can take part by tweeting with YITCON14, or if you've got questions you want to ask, in the unlikely event that we get much time for questions of our speakers this afternoon, hashtag AskYitCon. Hashtag AskYitCon. You can all send, here and around the world, questions to that hashtag, and we'll get to them if we possibly can. A really exciting session over the next couple of hours about leadership in IT. An amazing and exciting space, but one where, for what my opinion's worth, I think we need strong, dynamic and innovative leadership now more than ever. I regularly talk in my capacity as a lapsed mathematician and now minor media celebrity in Australia. I often talk about the amazing world of the digital age, often not to people who experience it as much as yourselves, but when I try and explain to people how rapidly things have changed and the world in which we now are and are moving into, there's a couple of examples I like to bring forth that I'll share with you today. This is the first computer of the modern era. This is called the ENIAC from back in 1946, the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator. What a gorgeous machine. The irony was, back in the day actually, the computer as such was the tag given to the woman there whose job was to put all the cables into the appropriate holes. That was the computing job that was actually thought to be a little bit lowly for the white male professors who would say to them, yeah, stick that in there, stick that in there. But that's your ENIAC, right? That's your first computer as such. Within a human lifetime, this revolutionary device has been replaced by this. And if you try and get a concept of how far we've come in just one human lifetime, ask yourself, if we were to build a smartphone out of ENIACs, how would it go? If we took the first computer and built what is the typical digital device that most people interact with one human lifetime later. Well, the ENIAC you saw was one story of a building. This here is the biggest one-story building in the world. It's the vehicle assembly building that you've seen before the space shuttle slide out of before it launches. Well, if you were to make an iPhone out of ENIACs, how big would that one building computer be? 170 times the size of NASA's vehicle assembly building is how large an ENIAC version iPhone would have to be. It'd be reasonably heavy, yeah? Oh, it would. Let's take a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, all 100,000 tons of it, and it would be 2,500 of those that you'd be lugging around in your pocket if you were carrying an ENIAC iPhone. iPhones need to be recharged, of course. They run out of power now and then. You've got to find a power point. Off you go. You might carry a portable charger around with you. What would you need if you wanted to recharge your ENIAC iPhone? This is the world's largest nuclear power plant in Finland. It has 1 terawatt power, requires 500 of those is what we would need to recharge our ENIAC iPhone. I presume it'd set us back a bit too. You can get your iPhones now for several $100. You might get change out of $1,000. If we wanted to build an ENIAC iPhone, in 2014 it would cost $50 trillion to build an iPhone out of ENIAC technology. That is the annual GDP of the entire world. So if the world said tomorrow, let's build a smartphone out of 1940s computer technology, we could not do anything else for 12 months while we built it. In the space of a human lifetime, things have collapsed like that. Who remembers the Cray supercomputer from 1985? It was so cool. If something had been tested on a Cray supercomputer or a Cray 2, that was it. That was the greatest computing technology of its day. It has the same grunt as a standard tablet these days for about $35 million less. This is from the world of chess. 1996, who'll forget when Gary Kasparov faced off against Deep Blue, yes, the IBM computer. Now, the first time they went round, Kasparov beat Deep Blue. The guys at IBM take this sort of stuff very seriously. They invented a new, better computer called Deeper Blue. Not the most imaginative name, but a bloody good chess computer. And in 1997, Deeper Blue beat Gary Kasparov. Deeper Blue was no normal computer. It was a giant working in conjunction, trillions of calculations per second. It was the greatest the greatest computer of its type. Hundreds of millions of dollars went into its development. I now have on my smartphone a chess playing app that would beat any chess player in the world or in history comfortably. And it cost me $9.95. So in the space of 15 years, you've gone from Deeper Blue to me carrying around Deeper Blue as one of multiple apps on my smartphone. That's not the coolest thing I've ever seen a smartphone do, however. Have some of you seen? Fire away with this. I hope it has embedded for us.
Go.
This is Cube Stormer. It's a Lego robot with a Samsung smartphone interface that can examine and solve a Rubik's Cube in 5 seconds. That's amazing. People see that sort of stuff and they start to think, wow, what does it represent? It represents the world that we are in now, the world where devices have just changed everything. Roche, the pharmaceutical company, in 2012, did a single project where they took 300 cancer tumours and extracted the DNA from them. That single experiment created more data than Roche had created as an entire organisation in the century 1910 to 2010. In 2012, they did a single project that created more data than they created in a century previous. This is the square kilometre array that some of you would have heard of being built in Western Australia and South Africa. A series of radio telescopes spread over quite a distance that if all put next to each other would run about 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. When it is up and running, its daily data traffic will be equivalent to the world's current internet traffic. We are building an entirely new internet in Western Australia and South Africa, and it's essentially a single device. And someone I know who works on the project put it to me, we used to look at the universe through a pinhole camera, and we're about to start looking at it on an IMAX screen. This is the world that we're in now. For me, one of the great heroes and one of the great leaders at the moment is Professor Terry Speed, an Australian scientist at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute in Melbourne. Terry, when he grew up, wanted to be a doctor. Did 6 months of med school, didn't work out, went off and did statistics, and he's now one of the world's uber gurus when it comes to statistics that analyse big data. There is so much information being produced now, the ability to even know how to interpret it is one of the key skills. You remember when we all did stats in high school, and you do your experiment, you get your 16 results, and you'd average them out, and you'd take away the top one and the bottom one, you'd average them again, shuffle them round, and throw your grandmother's age in there because you had the time to do it. There is so much data coming out of experiments and projects these days. It is people like Terry Speed who are developing the new series of algorithms to even be able to interpret it. He's an Aussie, and we should be very, very proud of him. But it's this age that we're talking about where we need more than ever before great minds going into this field and great leaders, whether it's in science, technology, or the corporate world. And we're going to hear from 3 great leaders in this session with their thoughts on the future of IT leadership. The first one I want to pull up is appointed Chief Information Officer for the Woolworths Group in April of this year. Clive and his team are focused on improving business value and performance through rapid technological innovation and customer-centric IT solutions. Clive is an accomplished senior executive with a strong track record of delivering transformation programs, driving strategic business outcomes and delivering technological innovation. He's a geek, don't get me wrong, but he's very, very good at it. Please give him a big round of applause. Clive Whincup.
Thank you. Great introduction. Fantastic event. I'm really, really pleased to be here, and thanks for coming along to listen to me. Well, as you just heard, my name's Clive Wincup. I've been around a bit. I've been in information technology for about 3 decades. That's a long time. Not quite as old as the equipment you saw up there before, but some of the kit that I worked on when I first started was not too far away. What I want to talk about today is something which I think should be quite close to all of your hearts. Now, I'm assuming all or most of you are either embarking upon or already have embarked upon a career in IT. And what I want to talk to you is about your career. Now, if you think about your career in the 30-odd years ahead in your life that you've got, think about what the most influential thing or things is going to be in that long period of your career. And I would like to just suggest, to stop you thinking too much about it, that the single most influential thing in your career is going to be you. And that's what I want to talk about today. So today, as we've already heard, and you'll hear more from other speakers, we've come an awful long way in terms of the expansion of technology and the opportunities of technology. But actually, it's only just starting. For anyone embarking on a career in technology today, the pervasiveness of technology, the fact that everywhere you go and everything you touch contains technology, that trend is only going to continue to grow and grow and grow in an exponential way. And so anyone embarking on the idea of a career in technology really is faced with a vast array of opportunity. And if you think about that, that's a great thing. But equally, it can be a problem. Because when you're faced with so much opportunity, the first questions are, well, which opportunities do you take? What do you actually do about developing your career, and especially in the early stages? And I want to talk a little bit about that. This is really about taking control, and that's the theme of what I want to talk about. Taking control of your own career, of your own destiny, because you are the most influential person in your career. So right now, the choices that you're making, whether they're in your education or in your early career, are going to be really important. Now, that doesn't mean you need to sweat over them too much, because at the end of the day, there are many opportunities to correct your path. But I want to give you some insights into what I think are the best opportunities that are going to emerge over the next few years, and where you want to be thinking about developing your education and your experience. The demand for skills is going to grow very, very quickly. And almost any field that you choose to work in technology, whether it's in the most technological areas all the way through to the softer areas of communications and people management, it doesn't really matter, because there's going to be so much opportunity that you will find a way of actually succeeding in whatever way you choose. But I did think I'd talk about some of the more commonly mentioned technological trends of today. You probably have all heard or seen this acronym somewhere, SMAC. If you talk to, as I do, often talk to the big computer companies in the world, whether it's Microsoft, Apple, whether it's Google, EMC, IBM, HP, Oracle, any one of them, they will all talk about these 4 things. And they'll talk about them in a way which is almost unique in the history of information technology. And what they're saying is, never before have so many disruptive technologies come together at a point of maturity in the same period of time as today. And all of those companies, and between them they are spending billions upon billions of dollars every year in research, they're trying to figure out which way forward, which way do they need to go forward, and what is the future actually going to mean for them. There's this notion of the second half of the chessboard, which you might hear about today. You know the story of the inventor of the game of chess was given the opportunity of naming their reward, and they put 1 grain of rice on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, and so on and so forth. By the time they got to halfway through the chessboard, that's 2 to the 32nd power, there wasn't enough rice in the world to actually provide that number of grains of rice. And the point is that all of the trends that I'm going to talk about here are on that growth curve. None of them are actually new per se. None of them are completely unique. But they're entering into a phase of development where the exponential curve is going from a broadly horizontal line to a broadly vertical line. And things will change very, very rapidly, very dramatically over the next few years. So what is SMAC? SMAC is basically an acronym which talks about 4 very powerful trends which are going to determine today's opportunities and the opportunities over the next 5 years or so. Social. Now, social is simply about everybody being connected to everybody. And again, it's not a new notion. We had email, we had mobile phones. But now the possibility of actually creating social networks, virtual networks of friendships across the entire planet is something which is changing not just technology, but the way people and the way society is actually developing. In the world of social, anything can happen and become a global phenomenon in a matter of minutes. That has never happened before. So what you just heard talk about the enormous explosion in computing power, that explosion in computing power is leading to a massive explosion in the ability to connect with the whole of humanity. Mobile, with the advent of very high bandwidth communications and very, very powerful computing devices, you can connect to anyone in any way. You can use apps, as you've just heard, that could play the world's greatest grandmaster in chess and beat them. And it's an app running on a phone. And less than a decade ago, that was a gargantuan computer which cost millions and millions of dollars to build. Well, fast forward that another 5 years, that development is not going to slow down. Mobile applications will be the norm. They will be the way people work going forward. Analytics is one of the most challenging areas in business today. Basically, we've been working for many, many years trying to understand behaviors, trying to analyze data, and glean information and glean insight from that data. Today, the quantity of data that's available, either within an organization or from the broader internet, is simply unimaginable. There is so much data being created that there is simply not enough storage to keep it anymore. So data is volatile and it's disappearing. So what is analytics about? Analytics is really about trying to understand from simple facts and simple data, what are the behaviors that are driving customers to shop, to buy things, to go on holiday, and to do anything. Companies are actually so totally focused on the power of data and the power of it to understand and serve customers that it's going to be a huge area of expansion. And that goes from both the creation of databases to the creation of infrastructure that supports it, and the ability to actually mine the data and understand the data and the statistical analysis that goes into that, the pure mathematics all the way through to the pure technology. A huge area of expansion. And the last one is cloud. And cloud, again, is nebulous, of course. What is cloud? The bottom line is cloud is really just the idea that instead of running my own infrastructure and my own applications on my own hardware, I can just get it from somewhere else. And I'm not really that interested in where I'm getting it from, hence it's a cloud. The growth of cloud solutions, which is basically 2 things. It's either infrastructure as a service, in other words, I don't have the infrastructure, I need it on demand, or I don't even have an application base, I just want to get it when I can, is growing at a phenomenal rate. And all of the huge IT companies in the world are all totally focused on how cloud is going to change the way that we do computing, the way that companies and individuals interact with each other, and how that whole community will come together as a single integrated entity over time. So if you're thinking about, where should I be looking, you'll see SMAC and this acronym and these notions bandied about in many, many different ways. Take the time to understand them more profoundly and understand which ones fit with your particular preferences and pursue that in terms of education and information. So how do you start to take control? Well, there's no question that the best way to take control is to start right now. The choices you make today are the ones which will actually start to determine how your career unfolds. So don't leave it. Don't leave it till next week, next year, whatever. Take the decisions now. Take control now. Think about what are your education topics? What are the things you're studying or have studied? And don't think that education ends with the end of formal education. Certainly, one of our great values within Woolworths is we never stop learning. There is never a day when there's not an opportunity to learn something. So never think that your education is complete because formally it's complete. But always think about the relevance. Always think about the practical application. I think you've heard before today, technology is about solutions. It's about changing people's lives. It's about changing the way we do business. It's nothing in itself. It is not an end unto itself. So think about the application of it and where those applications will go. Think about your early employment. I talk to a lot of grads and I talk to a lot of young people just starting out in their careers in technology. And the biggest piece of advice that I give is, think carefully about what you're doing today. Make sure that you're doing it to the best of your ability, but think about the next step. Think about where that could go next and think about what the next 1 or 2 steps could be. And unless you're a grandmaster in chess, you won't be able to think about what the next 5 steps are. So don't even sweat about it. Just think, what's this job and what's the next job? Think about what grad programs are out there. Think about what employers are actually offering. Ask them questions about how do you support me through the process? What happens when the program ends? What kind of social networking is there as part of the program? How do I become part of the company that I'm joining? The grad program any grad program is a really valuable experience for both the employer and the graduates. But if it's not chosen properly, it can work out badly. So choose it carefully. Make sure that you ask all of the right probing questions. And remember, when you're interviewing, it's a two-way process. You're not just being interviewed to succeed in your application. Equally, you're selecting your employer. You're selecting your institute of education. So think of it always as a two-way thing, and always have in mind about what control are you taking and how you're able to determine the outcome. One thing I would suggest as well is, when you do make contact with people, approach people about being mentors. One of the hardest things to do is to understand what any given circumstance means to you. Often it's very useful to be able to just sit down with someone who's been through something very similar and just ask them, how did it feel? And how did you deal with it? And what did you do about that? Those conversations can be very, very insightful. They don't need to be particularly well planned or structured, as long as you're willing to be curious and actually think about what that experience is and what it means to you. So look for mentors. And in my experience, anybody who's been in the IT industry for a long time is more than willing to talk to young people about their own experiences and offer any insight that could be. Don't get me wrong, the future is going to be quite different from today. Nevertheless, it isn't a complete quantum jump. It is a progression. And the same human experiences will be valid going forward as they have been for the past decades. So try and identify people who you can talk to, you can have a regular conversation with, a mentor, a coach, or someone who you admire or think potentially has done something that you would like to do. Seek them out and be bold. Just contact them. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can not respond to you. So I would very much suggest that you do that. So some of the principal characteristics, I think, of what you need to do. In my vocabulary, it's not so much about what you know. There's great value in what you know, and technologies can be very deep in certain areas. So certainly knowledge is incredibly influential in your career. But I would suggest that the most important thing in your career is not so much what you know, it's the way you behave, the way you act, the way you think, and the way you actually approach problems. And here's just some, off the top of my head really, ideas about what that actually materializes in. As I said, have a learning mindset. Always treat any circumstance as an opportunity to learn. That will never stop throughout your entire life, and particularly in your career. If you ever think you've stopped learning in a role, you've got to think about getting out of that role and getting on to the next role, because if you've stopped learning, you've stopped developing and stopped growing. Have the right attitude. And that's really about, don't sweat the plan too much. If you think, 5 years ago I thought I'd be there and I'm not there, it doesn't really matter that much. Think about what your options going forward are. A great quote from Peter Drucker about strategy against culture. It basically said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. What that actually means is you can have any plan in the world, but at the end of the day, it's your own culture, your own behavior, which is going to determine the outcome far more than the plan itself. Work hard. It is hard work. It's a very challenging career. It's a very challenging environment, and it's getting faster and faster. Be curious. Always want to know about people you work with, about the backgrounds that they come from, about what their views of the world are. Be curious about technology, but be curious about the people you're working with as well. Become yourself an agent of change. That little picture there is meant to be Gandhi, by the way. Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And there's no other way of bringing about change and driving change than actually being part of it. And as young people coming into the workplace, you are amongst the most important factors of change and influences of change that there can be in industry today. And make no mistake, industry is waiting for the influx of new ideas and young people coming in and changing the way that they do business. So be bold. Don't step back. Always take the opportunity. Don't be shy of voicing your opinions. There's always someone in the room who knows more than you. Equally, there's always someone in the room who is quite willing to listen to you. So be bold, take the step forward, and keep on going. And in closing, I just wanted to show you a little video, which is something we put together in Woolworths just recently, which kind of tried to track, what's the history of IT in Woolworths? What does it mean to the people in Woolworths today and how they're feeling? What's the future and what kinds of things are coming along the way? So in closing, thanks for listening, and here's a little insight into what we're doing in Woolworths.
Thank you very much, Clive. Give him a round of applause. One quick question. For someone like yourself who's at a mature stage of your career compared to some people just starting out, is there any preference in your mind for, after 15 years, being able to say, I've worked in several completely different industries, or I've really specialised and honed a particular skill? Is there... What do you think between those two at different stages and ages of people's lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, I've spent a long time in one industry, and I've only recently shifted to another industry. And that experience shows me that whilst there's always the stimulus of something new, a different industry, and lots of really fascinating things to learn about a new industry, equally, most of the things I've learned are applicable in almost any industry. And that's the great thing, I think, about technology, is that once you learn the core skills and the core disciplines, actually they're very, very transportable. And as long as you have an open mindset and can take on board new things and always willing to learn and move forward, actually, it's very rare that you learn something that you can't then reapply at a later stage. So, I would say again, don't sweat it too much. Take the opportunities as they come, but make sure you really leverage the opportunities when they do come.
Please give Clive a big round of applause. Thanks for that, Clive. Great stuff. Talking about a diverse career, our next speaker's been a global CIO with firms BHP Billiton, Newscrest, Transurban, Skilled, Interoil. Now manages his own company called CIO Advisory, providing CIOs to large organisations. He's worked in 25 different countries, as well as living in Singapore, Malaysia and the US. Please give Ken Matthews a big round of applause. Ken.
Thank you very much. There's a clicker. I think the discussion I'll have with you today is very similar lines to Clive. A few things I do differentiate on though. As you go through your career and thinking forward, you've got to think about the evolution of the industry, the evolution of the technologies being used, the evolution of the themes and cultures of organisations, and in all that, you've got to align your career to that. The careers that Clive and I went through are almost a different world to the careers you're going through right now. So if you think about how the world is changing, decreasing birth rates, longer life expectancy, being retrenched twice in your lifetime, these are significant changes, increasing demand for skilled labour, but I'd say at the same time there's an awful lot of dead wood in the industry, in our industry as well. What else is changing? Change in technology trends is constant. Clive went through SMAC before. That will continue to change. Once we get through SMAC, there'll be something else. As technologists, you've got to realise that being a specialist in cloud is good for today and maybe good for the next 5 years until it becomes operational business. You've got to work out what the trends are as you go through your career. It's not unusual to change jobs 5 or 6 times in your lifetime, and you've got to take into account the new job classifications that are coming through. When I started off, there was not multimedia specialists, there was not. In fact, I think I was around the same time as Clive when some of that early technology was developed. But these are some of the things you've got to position for. And in terms of the organisational trends in companies now, retained IT is a threat. If you want to be an infrastructure person in your career and you love infrastructure, you love routers, you're less likely to work for an organisation, you're more likely to work for a supplier in this new world, because as we push everything out to the cloud, it'll be there. That's another thing you need to take into account. If you're an application developer and you really want to do development for 20 years, then you've got to think the future is probably about being 90% of those roles will be in big software development companies or American or Indian companies. CIO autonomy is diminishing. We're seeing a trend towards CIOs in general being lower autonomy, lower authority and lower salaries across organisations. The first half of my career I was a CIO. I was a CIO 7 times. The second half of my career I now review CIOs and I appoint CIOs. And I can tell you I've learnt more in the second half of my career about being what a good CIO is than I did in the first half of my career. And there's one issue that affects our entire industry at the executive level, and that's arrogance. And I've said this at every presentation I ever give for the ACS, and I should congratulate the ACS on this presentation today. As an industry, we've got to realise we don't know the answers. We've got to realise that we don't do things, as Clive said, for the sake of technology. We do things to create value for organisations, and there's a really important lesson in that. Organisations more and more have a very low tolerance for failure. You see, once you creep up your careers, you get into areas where there is risk in your career. And I'm seeing a big trend in executive technology positions away from accepting risk as part of your job. You see, the real CIOs realise that I need to take a risk by developing a big ERP or changing an operational project. You're seeing a lot of people working out the whole way to work through their career without taking a risk. And I think that's a dangerous trend for our industry. It's rare that businesses have good strategies. When you develop an IT strategy, you've got to actually align yourself with a business strategy. I'm working with 5 companies now, not one of them has a good strategy. And so we, as part of our CIO role and part of the executive role, has to work out what the strategy of the organisation is, to then work out what the executive of IT have to do to work out what our careers are as part of that. And there are less and less qualified CIOs. We're seeing a big trend towards more and more junior CIOs, IT managers rebranded as CIOs. And all of this takes into account where you think your role is. Now, how many people here think they want to be a CIO when they grow up? Not many. How many people think they know what a CIO is? Does anybody want to answer the question out loud? I didn't say what the acronym stands for. What does the job actually do? Advising the business technology is not bad. We went through a period of technology CIOs, people that were technologists who grew up and thought their whole job was to manage and implement and make decisions about technology. We're in the era now of business CIOs where your job is to be a general business manager. My job is not a technology role. My job is a business role. I'm looking for opportunities to improve the business. And I happen to have a technology portfolio. That's where we are now, and we're leaving that. We're on the way to the digital CIO, the one that changes the customer, the external customer's experience by using our products. The technology CIO, surprisingly enough, I've removed about 6 or 7 CIOs in the last year. All of them were technology CIOs. So there is still a lot of technology CIOs around. People that think their role is about managing technology. And Clive, everything Clive talked about then was being a business leader. He was ensuring graduates' alignment. All those sort of things are about being a business leader, not being a technologist. Technology is just his portfolio. The business CIO, the one word that describes it here is alignment. It's trying to deliver to your businesses what they need, not what you think they need. And digital CIO is about disrupting a business and changing the whole business and transforming it to be a different business model. So in your careers looking forward, you need to think about where you want to be as the endpoint. And the one thing I will disagree with Clive on is don't think too far ahead. I think if you're driving between Melbourne and Sydney, every intersection you come to, you need to decide which way you go to get to Sydney. Now, it doesn't mean left or right gets you there any quicker, but what you've got to decide is where you want to be in your career. 17 years before I became this global CIO at BHP, I wrote a career plan that said I wanted to be the global CIO at BHP. And every decision I made between then and the time I got the job was about getting closer to that role, was getting more executive experience, was about getting more mining experience, was about getting better access to boards, presenting to boards. Every decision has to get you there. So what you need to do as individuals is work out where I want to be. Where do I want to be when I'm 30? Where do I want to be when I'm 40? Where do I want to be when I'm 50? You cannot ask that question when you're 40 or 45. You need to answer that right in your career now. Now, you might be stuck in the period of loving technology and loving implementing technology, but do you really want to be a network architect 50 years from now, 30 years from now? So what you've got to do is think about that long vision. Now, it doesn't have to be accurate and it doesn't have to be all-consuming, but you need to have an idea of where you want to be. And then every decision you do along the track will let you get closer there. The biggest problem with some of these things is, you know, someone will come to me all the time and say, I want to be a CIO. And either they've left it too late or they haven't got the skills to be a CIO. You've got to be practical and you've got to surround yourself with people that will give you very good advice. And getting a mentor is a fantastic first step. But I would add to what Clive said, a mentor that will be absolutely honest with you is the hardest thing to do in your career. To sit in front of your mentor and say, I want to be a CIO, and he says, no, you can't do that. What you should be is a CTO. Or what you should be is a HR executive, or whatever that sort of thing. So just because you sit there and think, I'm going to be the boss one day, the boss is not necessarily the CIO, firstly. But secondly, you've got to analyse the reasons inside you why I want to be the boss. Do I just want the corner office? I aspired to the corner office for the first 10 years of my career. I got in the corner office. 2 hours after I took the job, there was a major system outage and I was blamed for it. And I had nothing to do with that outage, and I knew nothing about even what the system was. So you've got to be careful what you wish for, because you can actually fail. The other thing is you can actually get to where you want to be if you plan very well, but if you get there, you might not ever be a CIO again. It's hard to be a CIO the second time, and you can see someone like Clive who's been a CIO many times, you can see he's a statesman in the way he communicates, and that is applicable to all industries. But with your career, you've got to think about where I'm going to be, how every step will get me from where I am to where I need to be. Do I have the people around me that will be honest with me about my capabilities and will tell me no, that I can't do something? You've got to develop a plan. If you don't develop a plan and you don't tell people about it, how will they know? That is not only your management, your HR and your organisation, but also the recruiters. If you're open for a role overseas, you've got to tell people about that. The other part about your career is sacrifices. No one gets to be an executive of a global organisation like BHP or Woolworths without making some sacrifices. I lived in 27 houses. My wife lived in 27 houses, who keeps reminding me of that. My kids were born in Malaysia, learned to speak in Texas, and went through puberty in Singapore. That was a sacrifice I was prepared to make when they were young. I did 1 million frequent flyer points every year for 4 years in a row. You know, they're the sacrifices I actively made to get my career to where I wanted my career to be. You can't just say, I'm going to be the boss and I'm going to get the corner office and I'm not prepared to do anything about it. There's a good in The Simpsons where Flanders, as a child, his parents go to the psychologist and says, he's out of control and we've done nothing about it. This is the same with your career. You've got to manage your career actively to decide where you want to be, make sacrifices to get there, keep yourself aligned if you've got any chance of being successful in this sort of industry. And you must, different to me, I jump between oil and gas industries and mining industry and FMCG and call centres. If I was asked that question at the end of this by Adam, I'd say, I think the world has changed. I think the way I was able to change between industries has changed. Now you become an oil and gas or an FMCG CIO, and I say 80% of CIOs are more likely to stay within their domain knowledge and not move out. And that's nothing to do with us as CIOs. That's got to do with the bigotry of the boards and the management teams we're dealing with. They want an oil and gas guy who knows what deep water is. But I can tell you as a CIO, I've travelled the world. I managed, if you remember years back, there was a tunnel crash in the tunnel in Melbourne. I was part of the management team that investigated that. I've been on helicopters in the Gulf of Mexico. I've been in mountains. I got off a plane once in Algeria and I was met by a security guard who put a flak jacket on me and took me around security into a secure car. I was only there for 2 hours, but I was nervous the whole time. I couldn't even go to the toilet, I was so nervous. It's a wonderful industry to be part of, and congratulations again to the ACS for managing this, but it's a great career. Being an executive in IT, there is no limit to where you can live, what you can do, the people you work for, the cultures you work in. It's only limited by your imagination and what you're prepared to do to get there. If you're in a position that doesn't match your career and you're not happy, do something about it, move on. Great, thank you very much.
Great stuff, Ken. Let me ask you just one question. Looking around the audience here and the sort of age group we're looking at, we'll add a few years on. If you were to see someone who was 30 years old and you say, yeah, that person could be a CIO, what do you see in someone a few years older than where a lot of these guys are at? That what sort of thing defines that potential to get to the very best at around that age of someone's professional development?
I would say it'd be nothing to do with your technology skills. It'd be to do with the way you appear, the way you present, the way you sell a concept. It was interesting when I left being a CIO and started running my own company. My biggest risk was being able to sell. And somebody said to me, you spent your whole life selling to executives and to boards. And it was true. Once I started doing it, I realised actually I've been doing it my whole life. So I think what you need to think about is how people perceive you, your public image, how you sell that image, and how you can sell a concept. I think that's what I would say.
Great stuff. Give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. I can also announce that having accrued 1 million frequent flyer points every year for more than 4 years, after tonight's party, tonight's after party is being held in the Qantas Lounge, and Ken's running it for us. It's going to be fantastic. Tough crowd. Let's move on. Okay, our final speaker in this session I'm very much looking forward to. If you ask yourself what's the coolest of the technology companies out there, pretty much Apple, Facebook, something no one else has heard of or something, but no, Ben is the General Manager for Security and Privacy at CBA. Banks are the place to work as far as this man is concerned. And if you're not interested in banking, technology and security, you are about to become an evangelist. Ben Hayes from Commonwealth Bank, take it away.
Thank you very much. Terrific. And I might walk around a little bit. So I wanted to do a couple of things in the next few minutes that I'm going to spend up on the stage. And sure, what I want to do is to talk to you a little bit about Commonwealth Bank, why it's a cool place to be, what it is that we're doing, but to also share with you a little bit about me, my background in technology, and just some thoughts that I have for anybody that's starting off or in the early stages of a career in technology. So as I do that, let me just describe a little bit myself. I grew up in a house that had lots of technology in it. My father was an inventor, and it always meant there was bits of electronics lying around. He was inventing visual display aids for people with mobility challenges. So sort of ultrasonics or computing systems, and it always meant technology was accessible to me, which was a great start, but it also gave me a real interest for how it's being used, not just tech for tech's purposes, but for how it's being used. And that was a pretty good start. That was a curiosity that stayed with me all throughout my childhood. It stayed with me as I grew up. It led to me doing a computer science degree, an application development coding degree, a comp-sci degree, and then into my career and into my workforce. I spent the first part of that actually working in defense and intelligence in a security-related type work, before then moving into banking, which is where I am now. So let me talk to you a little bit about that and a little bit about how we see things at Commonwealth Bank. So firstly, technology is everywhere. You've just heard some of the other presenters talk about it being pervasive, and it completely is. When I was starting out in the industry, the really heavy amount of technology was happening in government, it was happening in defence, it was maybe happening in sort of financial services sectors, but these days it's everywhere, and it's changing so many different things. We've got applications that impact how we communicate. We've got Viber, we've got Twitter, we've got applications for how we maintain friendships, Facebook, Snapchat, applications for how we date, Tinder, and others. We've got applications for how we commute, Uber, or even travel, like Travelocity and Expedia. There's applications for so many different aspects of what we do. Banking is one of them, how we look after our money, our financial well-being, and how we buy goods. And it's not just people like us. We've got technologies like Bitcoin and other things that are in there as well. PayPal. So technology is pervasive. It's pervasive in so many different aspects of life, and is having this huge impact on traditional businesses and the way in which we can work. And I think one of the exciting things for me is I hadn't realised when I got into a career in technology, but technology is actually a massive accelerant. It's an accelerant for change in an economic, in a social, and at times in a humanitarian way as well. And we see that play out. We see that play out in just that sort of list of applications that are grouped together on the stage. We talked a bit before, Clive talked a bit before about SMAC. And again, those are very key trends that are happening. We've got the concept of mobile, so everybody is accessible on the internet because you have a smartphone in your pocket. We have cloud. We've got this capability to store all of our data, to store all of our personal data if we want, in the cloud as well. And it's always accessible, it's always available to us. Again, that's interesting. One of the interesting things for me, though, is it means large organizations can actually take money that they had spent on running and maintaining all of their own systems, spend it on managing systems in the cloud, and actually use some of the cost advantages from that to funnel it into different ways of interacting with customers, to again pick up that pace of that change. And in fact, that is, I think, why we're seeing a lot of that play out in the way in which we're starting to interact differently with each other and with companies. So we're seeing significant technology changes, and these are here to stay. There's a pervasive overall acceleration of impact that technology is having. It's a really exciting place and a fantastic place to be. I think these days, if you're looking at a career in technology, you've got so many options to choose from. It could be in music, it could be in entertainment, it could be in transport, it could be in almost all industries are now impacted significantly by how technology is making that impact, or how technology is changing what used to be traditional business models. So what about banks? Banks are not as boring as you think, or as you might think. So they're actually pretty exciting places to be. 22% of the money that is spent in information and communications technology in this country is spent by the financial services sector. That's a significant amount of expenditure that goes into technology from just one sector alone. And we're a really interesting place to be. We massively invest in innovation, both from the right culture, having a culture that's happy to try, that's happy. It makes it safe to fail. It's easy to have a good idea, it's easy to test it, it's easy to evaluate it, and actually, non-success or failure, if you like, is actually celebrated. At any one point in time, and I'll talk a bit about security, but at any one point in time, you need to think of innovation as a portfolio of ideas that you're pursuing with full knowledge that not all of them will come through. And banks are fantastic at that. Banks are very, very innovative, and particularly in this country, we've got some really different dynamics than we do in any other countries in the world, in the concentration that we have of our customers and in the high technology use and the high early adopter use that we have of our customer base, of Australians in general. So banks are very, very innovative, and actually in many situations, we will be thinking about ourselves as not just a world-class financial services provider, but actually a leading technology company as well. And whilst we certainly will be looking to see what our traditional competitors do, like NAB or Westpac or some of the others, we'll equally be spending a bunch of time looking at actually what the more disrupting type people are doing. What is Google doing? What is Facebook doing? What is Apple doing? Where are they going next? Who are we going to be? Where are we going next? So this whole sort of emergence view of traditional models that start to change is very, very present for us, particularly in the Commonwealth Bank. And we see that in some of the innovations that were brought to market. You get to be involved in some really world-class and industry-leading things. That might be the first payments that you're supporting through Facebook, the Kaching application that we took to market, our online presences that have got significant penetration into the customer base of Australia. You get to actually see the technology come into play as you start to practice it and start to use it. I think, but it's also not just the technology aspects. You get to actually see the difference that makes. I was speaking to some Facebook people recently, and one of their recruitment pitches is all along the lines of, within your first 2 weeks of being a Facebook employee, if you're hired as a developer, then you will put some code into production. That's quite an interesting and a compelling place to describe it. I'm not sure that that's quite the case for us for the 2-week mark, but certainly you get to work on some really impactful and exciting projects. We have a customer base of around 14 million. That's more than half of the population across all of our channels. We've got 3 million on our mobile banking application. We've got lots of new innovations and new feature sets that we take to market. Our cashless ATMs that we introduced quite recently. It's a bit of a crazy idea, I know, but it's a fantastically good idea too. As well as also things like our business banking applications. They're used by lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And we often look at this not just in that context of it's an interesting piece of tech, but actually it's the impact that it then has on the businesses and the communities that are out there. So one of the really good things that you get by working in a financial services organisation, by working at a place like Commonwealth Bank, is you get to see the impacts of your work. You get to see new products, new feature sets. You get to be able to stand back and recognise the fruits of your labour and to see them come into life. Quite often you also get to see friends and family also using those features and giving you feedback. Usually it's positive. And then how does security sit in that context? And so that's my main job, if you like, at Commonwealth Bank. I look after their digital protection group, and it's the cybersecurity portfolio and privacy and digital trust. Security, again, is even more dynamic in an incredibly dynamic industry. And it's got some different ingredients to it. It has this concept of an adversary. It's very adversarial in terms of how you go about your business. We've got significant cybersecurity type threats. They're growing, or the threat environment is deteriorating, is often how it's characterized. And we have them coming from different types of threat actors. We've got hacktivists, people that will use hacking for a political or a social purpose. They're perhaps trying to pursue a particular agenda or bring prominence to a particular ideology that they have or a concern that they have. And they'll happily use hacktivists or hacking type technologies or approaches to try and make that point. And that might be to try and disrupt services or to try and deface websites or do DDoS attacks and knock people offline. We've also got organised crime. Well, we're a bank, and so obviously you have a lot of money if you're a bank, and organised crime are very, very focused at financial services. They're very focused at also at merchants, at retailers. They're really quite impressive as well in terms of some of their capabilities. And we also have nation states, and if you read a lot of the types of reporting that is done, there's a range of attacks, be it Stuxnet that's been heavily reported, or attacks that have happened in the Middle East or attacks that have happened into America, where you see all sorts of reporting that characterizes and recognizes or awards the attribution for those attacks back to governments that are using those activities or using those capabilities to pursue their own agenda. So one of the things that we see here is threat actors from all different types of areas with different types of intentions or different types of objectives that they're trying to achieve. But it's a massively impressive marketplace. And I actually call it a marketplace because what we see is some incredibly good coding. We see some incredibly smart coding by the various different threat actors that are out there. And we also see very strong economic models. It is quite a well-developed marketplace with complete outsourced models, with labor arbitrage models. For you to be able to couple together attack techniques, you can have one team that is working on reconnaissance of a target, or another team that's developing or weaponizing some exploits that they want to use, and another team that will be looking to use it. So you have these really interesting business models that are impressive to watch, and some sophistication of the malicious software that's being generated. So very dynamic, and if you're working in the security industry, if you're seeking to protect an organisation like Commonwealth Bank, you're right at the forefront of this. You're right at the forefront of needing to understand what those sophistications are, pulling apart, reverse engineering code that you see, seeking to protect the customers and protect our bank as well in that process. And also, I have to say, working very collaboratively across with many of the other industry participants within financial services and outside of financial services. So it's very exciting. You could be one day pulling apart some code, literally reverse engineering some malicious code that's been written, understanding how it works, how is it being controlled remotely, where are the command and control pieces of infrastructure across the internet, do we want them to be there, would we rather they went away, and actually working out how to have defensive mechanisms or disruption mechanisms to protect the organisation and again our customers from that. Equally, you might be working with another partner or one of our corporate partners to help them respond to something that they're seeing. And there's this really good sense of an industry collaboration, particularly around this area in IT security. So very dynamic, very adversarial as well. It's not like other areas of technology where you have some requirements and maybe a great idea that you want to build into a tech solution and you have some requirements and you can build and then you can deploy. You're always working for control effectiveness, maturity, great products, but needing to always be agile, always being able to generate a MacGyver solution if that's what you need to do with a bit of sticky tape and some chewing gum, because you actually might need to react in that kind of a way. So you end up needing competencies and people and skill sets that are very diverse, lots of different opportunities in this area. But it's also not about protecting, and this is one of the things that really appeals to me as well. It's actually very much about trust, and it's about, particularly for the size and scale of an organisation like CBA, it's the trust in the digital economy for the country. So the capacity or the ability to influence that is enormous. And a lot of what cybersecurity is doing is really recognising that it is part of this actual trust. It's part of the brand confidence and a key pillar to that as well. So there are many things that you can be involved with and lots more work to be had in the security industry in future that I think will be delivering to this and helping companies, helping organisations, helping governments work out how to engender that trust and to make sure it's not eroded. We're very active in a variety of things, looking at cyber literacy programs back into high schools, coupling that with the financial literacy type programs that Commonwealth Bank is quite known for. But really working out how we can increase the general knowledge and general awareness of IT security, but also sow the seeds of curiosity in the next generation of the workforce that is going to come through. Again, like everybody else has described, the demand here for capability is very large. The demand here for capability is not currently met, and it's one of the key risks that we identify in terms of the ability to be able to bring in the right talent to help organisations on this path. So you're looking at a technology sector that is exploding and going through enormous growth with an enormous amount of opportunity, and IT security within that context is doing the same as well. So where do you fit in, and where's your place in that? How do you make sense of that as you're starting your career and try and think about how you can contribute? Well, if I point to my own team, for instance, I have a very broad mix of people that are in the group. I have people that are project managers that started off life not technical at all and then moved into technology. There are coders, there are application developers, there are penetration testers who spend all their time trying to hack things for us and work out how to break them. There are security architects that stand back and think much more at a logical level for how all the systems should work and how they should connect. But there's also policy analysts that have come out of maybe government or come out of an arts background. There are people with law degree backgrounds, particularly that are looking at some of the aspects of privacy and the compliance elements. But again, this is such a young industry. If you look at privacy by itself, it's populated at the moment by a lot of thinking that is compliance-centric, but is evolving rapidly into this concept of digital trust. So in many of the cases, in many of the roles that we have and that I have in the team, the people that are doing them were not trained to do them. And that, I think, is a characteristic and one of the fantastically good characteristics about technology. I did a computer science degree. I spent a lot of time writing code, but not that much. If I look at my career, not that much. And I think one of the things for me that a university degree, and it's not the only path of going, but it certainly is a very good path to go. But one of the things that does is it doesn't actually teach you the skill set that you will then use for the rest of your career. But it does teach you how to learn. And it also teaches you what depth is in a particular topic, which is very useful because it means you can recognize when you don't have it and you need to ask a friend or go find somebody who knows. So I think one of the exciting things about technology is that continuous learning, and that is the nature of how dynamic it is as an industry. So I think there's a wealth of opportunities, and the backgrounds are very non-traditional. In fact, there isn't a traditional background. So I think you can enter into the IT sector from a range of backgrounds with a range of disciplines and bring those skills to it and add a tremendous amount of value. There's learning in making those kind of transitions, and there's continuous learning in IT. One of the observations that I make, and these things are perhaps a little bit generational as well, but I think in the time that I've been in technology, there's an increasing business awareness and knowledge of technology itself. And again, the impact that technology has had by changing those business models has also forced that. So we're well beyond the days when technology was sort of a back office aspect to business thinking. And we're actually much more in an exciting time where it's right up front. Many companies are actually defined or powered by technology. In many cases, that is what they are. And so the one observation that I would make is understand what your passion is, bring it to technology, even if it's not technology as well. And I think increasingly we're seeing a business community that's trying to get closer and understand more about technology, and technologists that are adding a lot of value by having an understanding about business and an understanding about the marketplace in which the company that they're working for is operating. If I digress slightly, I spent a bit of time and I worked for a German bank when I had left government. And one of the interesting things to me at the time, I was leaving government and I joined an investment bank, and it was Deutsche Bank. Well, I didn't really know what an investment bank was, and I didn't speak German. But it sort of turned out to be okay, but a whole bunch of learning in that process. They didn't make me learn German, which was perhaps a good thing, otherwise I'd still be there. But there's a lot of learning in trying to understand, well, what is investment banking? How do I become relevant in that? How do I bring my technology skills to the business problems that you're trying to solve? So I think the place for you in technology is up to you. I want to make sure that you get the message from me that you should feel absolutely empowered, but also really excited about how varied this can be. And I know that can make it hard as you're trying to work out, well, which path should I follow and what's the right route? But I would suggest understand what your passion is, surround yourself with people that excite you, and follow that passion and look to see how you can bring that into technology and look to see how you can make impactful change leveraging technology. There's also a number of key trends. We've talked a little bit about them from some of the other speakers as well. I think the Internet of Things is clearly one of those aspects. We're going to see a huge explosion of devices on the internet. That's new markets, that's new questions about safety, about how am I actually going to make sure my fridge is patched or secure, and do I want my fridge telling 7-Eleven that I'm out of milk and trying to remind me via my phone to pick some up on the way home. I'm not sure I want that, maybe I do. But a whole bunch of different opportunities, different markets, different questions if you're in the security game as well. We've also got this explosion of personal information. This is a really interesting aspect of technology that's emerging, and also human dynamics. So one of the things that we're seeing is personal information is being really recognised as an asset class, as a value in amongst its own right. There are people that talk about in the future it will be an asset that needs to be recorded on people's books, just in the same way that property or systems or physical assets need to be. The World Economic Forum often talk of personal information as being the oil of the digital economy. It's that valuable. And I think if you're working in technology, we've got huge questions to answer in this, and we have this wrestle between the opportunity to leverage personal information to tailor experiences and interactions for people, but also this sense that people actually want to control it quite reasonably, and they want to be empowered to control that. And we need to work through, I think, as an industry, how do you actually allow that or facilitate that to happen? How do you make sure people are in control of their data? They're fully able to share it with who they want to share it with, and they don't feel mistreated by that process. But yet you can also leverage it with their permission to return back to them as much value as you possibly can. Very, very young as an area of technology for us to be investigating, and an exciting place. And then we've also got an explosion of the number of internet users that we're going to have. It's going to be 4.7 billion by 2025, and 75% of those are going to be from the developed world. And again, what does that mean? And if you're a security person, you immediately look at things like the developing world today. The developing world today, they often have a different percentage of their software that is licensed, that is not pirated, that is patched, that is managed. So if we've got 75% of the internet that's going to be from the developing world, is that trend still going to be there? And what does that mean? What does that mean for trust? What does that mean for security? But what does it also mean in the way of opportunity? What does that also mean in the way of new markets or new competition or new areas to compete in? But again, what does it also mean to the connectivity of those societies? What does it mean in the way of the impact to the individuals and to the humans that are living there, and how they might be able to interact, and the richness that they will then be able to have access to courtesy of that connectivity? These are really, really exciting trends, and it's a fantastically interesting time to be in technology. I wish you all success in working out how to plot that path, and think being here on a day like today, listening to some people, hopefully provide some positive input to that, and embrace the changes and embrace the dynamicness that you have ahead of you in what really is a very, very young, still very young and extremely exciting industry. Thank you. I think we may have got some time for some questions.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you very much for that, Ben. You said that you worked in defence and technology, defence and intelligence, and then you moved on from that very quickly. Come on. Defence. Can you tell us just one juicy, exciting, cybery sort of thing you saw there?
There is a wealth of interesting and exciting stories to
Excellent,
tell, but they generally don't like you to talk about them. I think, look, the one thing that I will say is that is a fascinating industry in amongst itself, and there's a huge opportunity to contribute to some very impactful and important work. But I'll decline to tell the juicy story.
Because you'd then have to kill every one of us, wouldn't you, before we left the room?
They'd probably just kill me, actually.
Comparing the two fields, so sure. In terms of, because the way it's portrayed in the movies when it comes to your cybersecurity in general is that one rogue, evil person who used to work for the good guys and then got stood up for a date or something goes, that's it, I'm going to bring the whole system down, and I just happen to be awesomely smart enough to be able to do that. They're going to transfer all the money in the world into my bank account, and because no one's then going to work out it was me. Are we a genuine threat of a complete crippling shutdown of an entire industry or an entire vast chunk of the digital world?
There are some extraordinarily capable people and capable groups out there. And what you see in the movies is very frustrating if you're in the security game, because it never quite looks like that. And it so easily could. It could look a little bit like that if they used a couple of different tools, but they always have the wrong tools on the screenshots. It's the little things that frustrate you. Look, I have to say, absolutely, there are significant threats, and we actually see some of those play out between the inter-country things that we see reported in the press as well. So there are significant threats. It is not too much of a stretch to some of the things that you see in movies. I think there's been some commentary about this in the US as they've looked at how well defended do they think they are. And their sort of high-level view seems to point to, we think the government's pretty good, particularly in the intelligence community. We think defence is pretty good. Critical infrastructure and the corporate environment needs some more help and needs some more attention. And that's probably where we are today. I think there's a huge gap between organisations that have the size and the capability and the scale to invest correctly in IT security and those that don't. But yet we've got some extraordinarily talented people that are out there. There are some strategists that point to, they make predictions about the future and they say, well, we'll just sort of carry on the way we are, or maybe there'll be a couple of incremental things that happen. And there are some Gartners pointed to this before, well, we may actually have a significant cyber event, a significant disruptive cyber event. And that may be responded to with a whole different range of investment and policy. So it's too early to tell, but there are some genuine threats.
We've got a few questions at the Ask YITCON from here and around the world on the theme of the cloud.
Sure.
And as we move, in particular, banking services more and more to the cloud, are we 100% confident that cloud is equally secure to what it's replacing? No, it's not. Nothing's entirely secure. Is it as secure as what it's replacing?
No technology gives you the opportunity to avoid common sense. So I think you've got to apply reasoned thinking and good due diligence to any of the decisions that you make in any technology, in any adoption of technology. So, and not all clouds are the same. So there's a lot that you can do with cloud technology. There's a lot of security controls that the vendors now are including baked into their cloud systems. I have to say some of that is because organisations like ours and some others get together and lobby those companies to develop those products and actually sort of help shape the technology of the technology industry in that sense. So I think, in many cases that there are some cloud instances or cloud providers that have got reasonable security that provides good compensation against a set of risks. And then you've got to make some sensible judgment determinations. Based on the level of that maturity, the level of that controls, maybe it's appropriate to store particular workloads or particular systems in the cloud, but maybe not everything, because there's a set of threats that you don't think are well mitigated against. So I think the approach has to be, firstly, there's no one technology that is going to discount any common sense, or actually that discounts the liability. I bank with Commonwealth Bank. I expect a number of you do here. The expectation that I have, and I would expect that to be yours, is that it's safe, it's secure, it's resilient, it's reliable, and that doesn't matter where we have our technology. And that's an obligation that we're not going to fail to meet. So our perspective then is to judiciously work out how to use the cloud, and to do that with a very strong view in terms of what are the risks that we're seeking to protect against. There's different types of technologies that actually do things like encrypt all the data before it's stored into the cloud as well. And some of them are very useful, some of them are very relevant. We make use of those technologies as well.
One final question from Sri Lankan Institute of IT. Cybersecurity, a dynamic field, seems constantly changing. Where should we start? So if someone here was thinking, yeah, cybersecurity, I'd really like to get into that. Is there a bit of advice for how you set yourself on that path?
It depends on what your background is. I think there's a few things to do. One is find somebody who's in it, talk to them, chat to them, understand what they're doing. You'll probably find that most organisations are trying to grow their capability. And quite often the way that works is there isn't actually a big enough funnel, there isn't actually a big enough feed, so there's a lot of opportunities that come via osmosis or come via the informal network. So reach out to people that are in the industry, find out directly from them what are they missing, what do they want to have that they don't have. There are some good things to do as well. The CISP certification is a useful thing to do. It's very broad, it's very general in terms of the information that it gives you, but it gives you a really good breadth picture of IT security. So there are things that you can do to stand out. You can be an application person but do a CISP, and it often then helps you stand out as being genuinely interested, willing to commit some time to understand about how IT security works. But also come along to days like today, reach out to colleagues, chat to me, chat to other people.
Will you be here during the afternoon too, so people can reach out to you?
Sure.
If you'd like to reach out to Ben, give him a round of applause. That was great, Ben. Thank you very much. And with that, our first live streaming session comes to a close. So if you're watching us online, you can get up and just stretch the legs out for a little while. We'll be back here in 30 minutes. We look forward to seeing you on the stream back again then. If you're in the room here, afternoon tea is about to be served in the Adapt Digital Showcase on level 1. Don't forget to keep scanning those rewards codes, and we'll be back here to continue our next session at 3:55. One more round of applause for our 3 speakers, please. That was great. Thanks, guys.
On the side, I've been sad with you for most of the night, ignoring everybody here. We wish they would disappear, so maybe we could get down now. I don't wanna know if you're getting ahead of the program. I want you to be mine, lady, to hold your body close. Take another step into the no man's land for the longest time, lady. I need you, darling, come on, set the tone. If you feel me falling, won't you let me know? Oh, oh. If you love me, come on, get involved. Feel it rushing through you from your head to toe. Oh, oh. This love is a blaze, I saw flames from the side of the stage, and the fire brigade comes in a couple of days. Until then we got nothing to say and nothing to know, but something to drink and maybe something to smoke. Let it go until our roads are changed, singing we found love in a local rave. No, I don't really know what I'm supposed to say, but I can just figure it out and hope and pray. I told her my name, I said it's nice to meet you, then she handed me a bottle of water filled with tequila. I already know she's a keeper, just from this one small act of kindness. I'm in deep, if anybody finds out, I meant to drive home, but I drunk all of it now. Not sobering up, we just sit on the couch, one thing led to another, now just kissing my mouth. I need you, darling, come on, set the tone. If you feel me falling, won't you let me know? Oh, oh, oh. If you love me, come on, get involved. Feel it rushing through you from your head to toe. Oh, oh, oh. Sing!
full throttle is swimming in the grotto, we winning in the lotto, we dipping in the pot of blue flow. Hitting so good, it's dripping on wood. Get a ride in that engine that could go. Batman robbing it, bang bang cocking it. Queen Nicki dominant, prominent. It's me, Jesse and Ari. If they test me, they sorry. Riders up like a Harley, then pull off in this Ferrari. If he hanging, we banging. Phone ringing, he slanging. It ain't karaoke night, but get the mic 'cause I'm singing. B to the A, to the N, to the G, to the B to the A, to the N, to the G. Hey. See anybody coming good to you? You need a back out up on your mind, your mind. Okay. Bang bang into the room. I know you wanna bang bang all over you. Let you have it. Wait a minute, let me take you there. Wait a minute, yeah, Bang bang, there goes your heart. I know you want it. Bang bang, see the look on her. I'll let you have it. Wait a minute, let me take you there. Let me take you there. Wait a minute, say it. Bang bang into the room. I know you want it. Bang bang all over you. Yo, I said bang bang, bang 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 bang, bang bang bang, bang bang bang. Bang bang, there goes your heart. I know you want it. Bang bang, see the look on her. I'll let you have it. Wait a minute, let me take you there. Wait a minute till you.
Okay, hello, check 1 2. Check 1 2. Hi, check 1 2. Check 1 2. That's fine.
So just have a bit of a chat.
Okay. No, that's check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Is there? Okay. Okay.
Nice and loud.
My friends and family, they don't understand. They fear they'll lose so much if you take my hand. But for you, I'd lose it all. Oh, for you, I'd lose it all. Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if you owe me, then all of this will go away. Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if you owe me, then all of this will go away. My house in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest, golden grand piano, my beautiful Castillo. I'd leave it all. Oh, for you, I'd leave it all.
Can you feel it? Now it's coming back, we can steal it. If we bridge this gap, I can see you through the curtains of the waterfall. When I lost it, yeah, you held my hand, but I tossed it. Didn't understand you were waiting as I dove into the waterfall. So say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo. Can you feel? Miles away, miles away, miles away. Can you feel? Well, we rushed it, moving way too fast, and we crushed it, but it's in the past. We can make this leap through the curtains of the waterfall. So say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo. Can you feel? Miles away, miles away, miles away. Can you feel? Well, I'm just a boy with a broken toy, all lost and gone. So it's here I stand as a broken man, but I found my friend. Now I'm falling down through the crashing sound, and you come around, and you rush to me, and it sets us free. So I fall to my knees. So say Geronimo, 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 sounds right, sounds right, sounds right, say Geronimo, make this make this
Can't believe you let me down, but the proof's in the way it hurts. For months on end I've had my doubts, denying every tear. I wish this would be over now, but I know that I still need you here. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. You've been so unavailable. Now sadly I know why. Your heart is unobtainable, even though God knows you kept mine. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. I have loved you for many years. Maybe I am just not enough. You've made me realize my deepest fear by lying and tearing us up. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. And I know, 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 and I know. I know I'm not the only one.
Pull my head to the sky, cover the sun in my eyes. I can see your silhouette, silhouette. I find a way to get to you. You look at me and I blush. You're like a perfect mirage. And they say you're out of my league, out of reach. I don't mind. I'll break my back for just one touch. Hold my blood for your love. Not in it for the honor. For you, I swear I'm gonna run through 1,000 burning fields, and nothing can stop me. Not in it for the glory. I just hope you're waiting for me. Never gonna give up. I won't let nobody harm you. I'ma fight for your love like a gladiator. Give it all that I got. I'm your knight in shining armor. I'ma fight for your love like a gladiator. Like a gladiator. You built your walls real high. Nobody else dares to climb. But I'ma work my fingers to the bone all the way to your throne. Catch every arrow with my shield if it brings you to me. Not in it for the honor. For you, I swear I'm gonna run through 1,000 burning fields, and nothing can stop me. Not in it for the glory. I just hope you're waiting for me. Never gonna give up. I won't let nobody harm you. I'ma fight for your love
might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high, it bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high, it bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high, it bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Hey, hey, hey. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Hey, hey. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on.
At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Singing la 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 la, que sera.
Here we go, yo. Yesterday is history. Oh, you gotta get through it. Tomorrow is a mystery, so let's just do it. And even when the rain falls, you and I will stand tall. No matter what you go through, I'll never leave you. So care what the world say. We spread love, it's the only way. So you gotta be strong, strong. Live by the words of the song, song. Together is where we belong, belong. Never stop dreaming, keep holding on. At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Saying la 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 la, que sera. We keep falling, but the world keeps spinning, and I might stop winning just as long as I got you by my side. We keep falling, but the world keeps spinning, and I might stop winning, but I know that we're gonna be alright. At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Singing la 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 la, que sera. At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Saying la 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 la, que sera. At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Saying la 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 la, que sera. At the end of the day, some you win, some you don't. So I'm glad that I'm here with some friends that I know. Always there with a smile, saying you're not alone. Saying la 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 la, que sera.
I stay out too late. Got nothing in my brain. That's what people say. That's what people say. I go on too many dates, but I can't make them stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say. But I keep cruising, can't stop, won't stop moving. It's like I got this music in my mind saying it's gonna be alright. 'Cause the player's gonna play, 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 and the haters gonna hate, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 and the faker's gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off. I never miss a beat. I'm lightning on my feet, and that's what they don't see. That's what they don't see. I'm dancing on my own, I'll make the moves up as I go, and that's what they don't know. That's what they don't know. But I keep cruising, can't stop, won't stop grooving. It's like I got this music in my mind saying it's gonna be alright. 'Cause the player's gonna play, 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 and the haters gonna hate, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 and the faker's gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off, shake it off, shake it off. I shake it off, shake it off. I shake it off, shake it off. I shake it off, shake it off.
Hey, hey, hey! Just think, while you've been getting down and out about the liars and the dirty, dirty cheats of the world, you could have been getting down to this sick beat.
My ex-man brought his new girlfriend. She's like, oh my god, but I'm just gonna shake into the fella over there with the hella good hair. Won't you come on over, baby? We can shake, shake, shake. Yeah. 'Cause the player's gonna play, 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 and the haters gonna hate, 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 hate. I'm just gonna shake, shake.
How are you, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back after your afternoon tea. Great to be here chairing this final session. We are just getting the technology together to get the streaming up and running again. The organisers have made a big mistake and they've said to me, Adam, look, but the streaming is very close to being online. We should really start the last session. Would you be able to go out and pad for just a couple of seconds if you've got anything you'd like to talk about? And they've made a big mistake because they've asked someone, has he got something they'd like to talk about, when that person has just released a book. This is hilarious. I've written this book called The Big Book of Numbers. I'm saying it now that so when I come up to you at the after party tonight and just mercilessly hammer you and hand out my cards, I've sort of saved a bit of time in advance of what I'm talking about. I'm an old numbers geek nerd from way back, so I've written this book on the numbers 1 to 100 called The Big Book of Numbers. About half of it's sort of geeky mathematics that most of you guys will find almost pornographic, and then it's also just weird science, history, trivia. So WD-40, the 40 in WD-40 was because it was the 40th chemical compound they'd attempted. The WD stands for water displacement. There you go. Hello, ladies. Let's move on. So that's the book. I'm going to be coming up during the course of the evening, and if you think I'm not serious about trying to get rid of this book, this is the box of cards my wife made for me that I hand out that describe the book. This is the third box I'm through so far, and there's another couple, not today, I mean in the last week or so since this. The book arrives on Monday. I'm really excited. It's like I've self-published it, so it's almost like, no, I'm not going to say it's like giving birth, but it's the closest I hope to get to being like giving birth. The stream, I believe, is pretty close to up. So what we're going to do, because we're encouraging you to use the Ask YITCON hashtag, okay, so the first person, hello streamers, from any one of our international destinations in India, Malaysia, anything like that, Sri Lanka, first person to tweet through on Ask YITCON and asks, could I have a copy of the Big Book of Numbers, will get one. So go to it right now, streamer, so I can check that you can hear me and I can hear you. Ask YITCON and you've got to then also ask YITCON, can I have a copy of the Big Book of Numbers, leave an email address and tell me which country you're tweeting from. First one through will get that. And what the hell, I've gone mad, I've gone crazy. I'll do it for the first person in this room as well who can tweet to Ask YITCON. Hashtag Ask YITCON. You've got to say, I'd like a copy of the Big Book of Numbers and your name, just your name if you're in this room, and the first one I receive will get a copy of the Big Book of Numbers. We all running smoothly over there, mate? We're ready to go? Everyone is happy? Fantastic stuff. Hello to all our streamers. Final session, let's do it. One of the key themes of YITCON 2014 is about the jobs of the future. We've heard so much about the workforce and the economy is changing. In the middle of this digital revolution, is it like the Industrial Revolution? Are we going to need skilled, talented, hard-working individuals to make it the best that it will be? Well, skill will be the key to future careers. So we're going to hear from people who can tell us about both the skills and the future that lies in front of us. Our next presenter is an amazing man, Ashish Jain, the founder and director of Silicon Memory Technologies and International Operations Director of the Education Centre of Australia, one of the platinum sponsors of YITCON 2014. He's been instrumental in setting the strategy and direction for ECA since its inception, which has seen the company recently expand into the international market. So if you're a budding entrepreneur and looking for a fresh perspective, I think you'll be inspired by his story. He's going to be here in conversation, talking to a room full of people, including Darian, D-A-R-I-A-N, who's getting a free copy of my book. Well done, Darian. And Fauzi, somewhere international. Good on you, Fauzi. The rest of you, I love you, but I'll hit you up at the after party with my card. Please give Ashish and Hex a big round of applause. In conversation, Hex with Ashish Jain.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
And Ashish, thank you so much for joining us. Have you been enjoying YITCON so far?
Yes, it's been very helpful and very, very good, I think, for the audience.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so your company is Silicon Memory Technologies. which does data storage and backup. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your company does?
Yes, we basically implement small to large storage, data storage for the IT, media, and broadcast industry. And we do custom solutions, tailored solutions, not so much outside the box. So we get very specific needs from people. Where recently we had a requirement, they wanted 1500 megabytes per second transfer rate. So we provided that with mini SaaS, and yeah.
Brilliant. What do you think have been your main successes as a company?
Well, in 91 we used to sell quarter megabyte memory modules. Today our equivalent is probably about a 48 terabyte system. And in 97 we were also one of the companies which started manufacturing memory modules in Sydney. So that was one of our bigger achievements. And recently we have installed SAP ERP for our accounting purposes as well. So I think the list is quite long, but I think with the time constraint, I'll probably leave it there.
So you're also the Director of International for ECA. Can you tell us a little bit about what that role entails?
Basically, my responsibility is to expand the campuses of ECA overseas, mainly in India. We have recently, with ACA, inaugurated two campuses in Ahmedabad and Chandigarh, which are known as IUPP, or International University Pathway Programs. Basically, the student can study for the first year in India, and after that we have partner universities in New Zealand, Australia, UK, Canada, and US, and they can choose to go over there. Now that adds to a substantial cost saving, as well as familiarizing themselves with the curriculum, because a lot of students who come from overseas are not so much used to the same style of education as in Australia. So that gives them a bit of a platform to sort of understand, get used to it, and it's not so much of a shock when they go. The other advantage is that they can choose not only Australia, but they can go to New Zealand, they can go to Australia, Canada, UK, USA, wherever they choose.
Brilliant. When you talk about your work, you often mention a foundation of values and principles that have contributed to your success. What values and principles do you think are most important for today's and, I suppose, tomorrow's ICT professionals to bring to their work?
Well, I think we have never sold a product. What we do is we provide service, we provide trust, and we provide comfort to our customers. The product sells itself. You have to establish a trust. You must be in it. You can't go and say, look, I'm doing this job because the money is good. That sooner or later does not add up to a long-term benefit. It's as an example, you might have a favorite pub or a club which you go to, or a restaurant. If the chef changes, if the ambiance changes, you know, how many times do you say, oh, we don't go there anymore because it's no longer the same place? Now, it's been 20 years since we actually advertised, and we still get a lot of customers. Today, we've got nearly 1,600 customers. So being truthful to what you're providing is one of the most important things. Not looking whether I'm going to get money for it or not, but just focusing on what you have to deliver, and have to be passionate about it. It needs to come from within you. Otherwise, it becomes too artificial, and that basically is our main focus when I talk about the values and the principles.
Do you think that kind of passion and that service is lacking in the industry, and maybe that's what sets you apart?
Let me give you an example. I mean, does everybody got a driving license here? Okay. Now, with the driving license, you guys are used to driving on a road, which is a fixed set of rules, a fixed path. Have you ever thought of going, driving a four-wheel drive in a bush? It opens you to a completely different opportunities. You're not working within any confined space. But if you're just driving on that particular road, then you're just being more or less mechanical in your approach, that these are the set of rules which you have to follow. And if you go to the bush with a four-wheel drive, you experience a lot of things, you see a lot of things, and you face a lot of obstacles. And you also choose that that track might be better than this one. There's so many streams in the ICT industry. You know, somebody might be liking MySQL, the other one says, no, I want Postgres. So you have to choose and you have to find out from within what is more, like in your case, you love the games, right?
That's right.
So it's finding that niche, not simply coming out and saying, you know, I've got a degree and I've got to work within that particular level. If you do that, then you get stuck. You can't progress. You need to be more creative.
Now, our delegates today have heard a lot about skills and jobs for the future. What do you think are the most critical skills that are needed to be successful as an entrepreneur?
I think trust, as I said before, plus passion, having flexibility, adaptability, and willingness to see what the customer wants. If you're starting out a business, you know, if you can't satisfy the customer, if you were a cook, for example, you would only attract those customers who like your food, who want your food. If that food changes, they won't come back to you. And that particular part has to come from inside. It must be within you to say, okay, you know, this is paramount. What the customer requires, if you can't fulfill that, and that fulfillment comes from within, being passionate about it. If you like, as I said, SQL, but you're stuck into Java programming or C# programming, but your mind is there. Those are the differences which sort of make you say, well, you know, today I don't want to get up because I don't like it. To generate it from within yourself, you have to follow that.
And how do you think our delegates can go about finding their passion?
Oh, they'll have to do a lot of experimentation. I mean, has anybody used Linux here? I mean, have you thought of sort of installing? So I've got one hand.
There's a few here.
No, a few, okay. Anybody set up a firewall for their parents? Or maybe an antivirus program or a DMZ zone? Parents always have that sort of a problem that this system is not working. Now, if you start sort of experimenting a little bit, what that does is, say for example with Linux, it'll open up a whole lot of opportunities for you, and it gives you a bit of a understanding in terms of finding, you know, what is more better than the other, what suits you more or what you like more. It's not simply that you go ahead and do the software engineering, but see the whole space as a 360-degree view of what is happening out there, how you can use it, what is more interesting for you. It could be, you know, you go down to the pub, for example, using a lot of common sense, you can actually, if there is a big line there, a lot of people sort of get upset with that, you know, why is such a big line at the counter? But you can also think, well, can I write a new piece of software here as an opportunity? In other cases, coming back to that four-wheel drive example, you feel you will encounter a lot of obstacles in there. Some may be good, some may be pleasant, some may be bad. But it teaches you to sort of look differently, you know, all around you. And that basically, you know, gives you that rise. I mean, passion as such, I mean, if I'm not a software person, I love hardware. And if you ask me to generate passion for software, I think that'll be a little bit hard for me.
Now, you're a great advocate for education, but you've also been quite successful without completing any formal tertiary education, and you have quite a story. Do you think there's room for both pathways, maybe formal education and then informal education in the future of the ICT industry?
Absolutely. The reason I could not complete my education is I'm dyslexic. So at that time when I was in school, you know, I was just termed as one of those boys who doesn't want to study. But it was not that. It's just that the things didn't make any sense to me. But electronics always interested me. When we first got our television set, the first thing which I did was actually open up to have a look inside. I didn't understand anything of it, nothing at all. But I still opened it up just to have a look inside and then marveled at all the different capacitors and resistors and whatnot. And after that, with getting involved in the computer industry, which was the latest thing at that particular time, I had to do learning at the same time as I went along, and had to use a lot of common sense in that particular process. Now, if you have a degree and you also use a lot of common sense, they're both linked together, and you can do a lot of wonderful things. On daily basis, when you walk, you might see some sort of a problem which irritates you, or you don't like it, or it's too lengthy, too time consuming. And if you're using your common sense, if you're using your power of observation, you can say, hang on a moment, let me write something there. That's an opportunity to write a good program. And that's why that four-wheel drive example is a very good one, because you've got to sort of navigate through yourself to find what to do. It's a very different set to say, look, let's get on the Princess Highway, gun the car down, and we'll be in Sydney tomorrow. But what have you done? You haven't gone outside that comfort zone, and you need to expand. You need to push. If you're working in let's say Java only, go and have a bit of a play with other things as well, and keep a lookout in daily life what happens. Why something takes such a long time to be accomplished, and from there you can find a lot of opportunities coming up where you can either write an application or try to find a solution, or put your particular software skills for different needs. And if you look back in history, a lot of things have come up like that. Let me give you an example. If you just close your eyes for a moment and picture this, that you are in a place in England, it's minus 20 degrees. There is no telephone, there's no electricity, there's no communication, there's no car, nothing at all. And it's the 18th century. And you have a gentleman by the name of Michael Faraday, who invented the first electric motor, or at least the basis of the electric motor. I believe he was only 22 years of age with very little education. Now, how was he able to think? How was he able to find something which is based on magnetic fields, which you can't smell, which you can't see, and which you can't feel? Yet, and he didn't have all those tools which we have today. I mean, we have got so much of tools and measurements which we can buy, right from a $50,000 spectrum analyzer to an oscilloscope. And he had nothing, yet he was able to accomplish that. And today the Faraday's law of induction, is very commonly used. Without that, nothing will be possible. I don't understand that particular law, but he made that. How did he accomplish that? If you can imagine that, if you can understand that no Coles, no Woolies, no taxis, nothing at all. If you want a food, you probably have to maybe go and kill something to eat something. Or if you're cold, you probably require for light maybe some animal fat to burn. I mean, we didn't have petrol, I think, in those particular days. But if you have a look at his accomplishment, it's astounding. And it's the circumstances in which it occurred, and you compare yourself today, it's a very, very different world. I mean, what we are doing is actually basing everything on those particular discoveries, inventions, which are helping us carry forward today. So we need to look what was so different about him. He was not confined. If you come out with a master's degree and say, look, I'm a software engineer, that's fine, but the world still has to operate. There are a lot of things which are not in sync or might be different. And that's where you need to sort of look to say, look, this is a piece of tool which I have, which I need to use. which needs to cover all of this world and not stick on that particular road. I think that's an important part.
So, to sum up, we've talked about finding your passion and believing in the service that you want to provide, and also just being out in life and looking for opportunities to
Yeah.
solve problems. Are there any other final perspectives or advice that you could share with our delegates about jobs and skills in the future?
I think IT industry or ICT industry is probably one of those things which is even faster than a bullet train, to be quite honest with you. What you learn today is, in about 4 months' time, 5 months' time, almost appears to be obsolete. I think a constant learning curve, adaptability, flexibility, and not being afraid. I'll give you an example of a real life. About a few years back, we moved into an acreage in Sydney. And I was having a wonderful time. I bought a tractor, I bought a ride-on lawnmower, a quad bike. It was the month of May. This is, I think, going back about 2 years. And as you know, in May, everything starts to get a bit cold. And I had gone to chop some firewood. And right there on the sandstone is about 1.5 meters black snake. Not only did that shock me, I was petrified. Suddenly, in my mind, the whole world just fell apart. This was this beautiful property which I was enjoying so much. And now I've got a deadly black snake there. And so many thoughts crossed, so many things, went through my mind. What I'm going to do now? Do I have to sell this property? Anyhow. Or was it a mistake? All my neighbors, they're at least about 100 meters away from my place. So I saw Pete working in his yard, and I took the ride mower, really, really gunned it down, went to him, and I said, "Pete, I got a snake in my yard." And he looked up and he said, "Oh, yeah?" I was dumbfounded. There was nothing else. I said, "Pete, I got a snake. You know snake, big black snake which kill you." "Yeah, that's all right. Just leave it alone." And I thought he was going mad, or I was going mad, And I still pressed him a little bit. And he got a little bit irritated, and he turned around and he said, "What do you want to do? Try some Indian snake charming skills on it or something?" I said, "No, look." Eventually he got the message that I was really, really scared. He says, "Okay, hang on, I'm coming." So he brought his paraphernalia, a stake and a bag and stuff like that, and he went and picked it up, took it into his property, and he had a creek at the bottom of his property, and he left it there. And you have no idea what was going through my mind. So, and I thought he was having a joke on me. So I over the next week, went to every neighbor and asked the same thing. What do you do with the snakes? And everybody said, nothing. Just absolutely nothing. And I thought, how is this possible? It's one of the most venomous snakes. I even went to a herpetologist. And he said the same thing. He says, "Man, you leave them alone and they'll leave you alone." He said, "Do you know which animal is responsible for the maximum number of deaths in Australia?" I said, "Snake." He said, "No." He said, "It's a horse."
Really?
Yep. But he says, "Do you take a shovel and try to kill a horse? Do you run away from a horse?" He said, "No." He says, and then he went into explaining about snakes, that they're very timid animal and everything like that, and they only attack. I guess the reason I was telling you is that now it's been 2 years, they don't bother me. You see one, oh yeah, that's all right. You just make sure that you don't sort of go too close to it. And if you stamp your foot on the ground, it'll disappear. With the ICT industry, you know that there is always a rapid change. You need to constantly learn, arm yourself with information, knowledge, and be flexible. There's so much of information available on the internet these days that if something is coming out, be ready, don't be afraid. The more information you have, the more knowledge you have, the better you get into capturing it and taking care of it in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ashish.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us today.
Great stuff, Ashish. Mate, I can picture you on a quad bike. You would look awesome on a quad bike, Ashish. Yeah, give him another round of applause. Great stuff. One of our platinum sponsors for YITCON 2014. Our next speaker is a leading, globally recognised futurist and entrepreneur. He's delivered keynotes on the future in 27 countries. He's written 4 books, founded 5 companies on his own. He's going to share his experiences on how to build a success in a connected world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ross Dawson.
Work is the center of our future, the future of society, the future of business, the future of all of us. That is the way in which we contribute. That's the way in which we make our livings. And the world of work is going to be absolutely transformed, I think, beyond what most people imagine. And that's critical because as in the world of technology, you are not only being affected by how work is changing, you are also creating that change. So if we look at the boundaries between humans and machines, in this particular examples, you can see that there are some humans and there are some robots. And if you look closely, you can probably work out which one is the human and which one is the robot. But it's getting closer. It is getting harder. We're already at the thing where you actually do have to take a second glance to actually work out which one is the human and which one is the robot. And it's not that long. In the next few years, we won't actually be able to tell the difference. So Professor Ishiguro in the center there, he works at Osaka University, and he's an hour commute from his lecture halls. And he said, I don't want to commute, so he built a double of himself to be able to give the lectures, and he could do that at a distance. So I'm actually very excited. I wrote about his work. These are called Geminoids, copies of humans, doppelgangers. First wrote about that 5 years ago, actually speaking with him in Singapore in a couple of weeks to the clients of a large technology company. And so I'll be able to see these things in action rather than just the videos of them. So what we want to do is just quickly this afternoon is look, first of all, at the transformation, the utter transformation that technology is leading to, how that is shifting work, look at some of the skills that are required to be successful in this world ahead, and finally, the opportunities that emerge from these shifts. So, transformation is a word, but it absolutely is something we are experiencing. I think that few people really understand quite how rapidly that is shifting. So we're all experiencing exponential change. But it is still something that the human brain is not very well geared to understand. So this is an exponential logarithmic chart on the left. This shows the pace at which the cost of computing power is moved. And this has basically been a 51% increase every year, which basically means that we're pretty confident the next decade will continue to be the same pace. So in 10 years from now, we will have around 60 times the processing power that we have. Now, if you have a smartphone in your pocket, which I'm sure you do, you have the computing power greater than any organization in Australia in the mid-90s, except for perhaps the Department of Defense. So this is already how far we've come. Imagine the capabilities we've got currently with technology. You will, in your careers and your play, have 60 times the capacity around a decade from now. If we look at how it's affected in storage, that's a pretty decent pace. That's at 64% per year, which means we'll have around 140 times the capacity in 10 years from now. So quite a while ago, when I was first working in the computer industry, we were selling computers which had 2 floppy disk drives, 512 kilobytes apiece. Today, in my pocket, I've got a USB which is 10,000 times the capacity. So we're already seeing, again, the capability of having this data is moving that pace. Unfortunately, it's a little bit slower if we look at bandwidth. So it's just around 31% per year on trend, which means we'll have 20 times the capacity in 10 years from now. So if you've got 10 megabits per second, then we'll have 200 megabits per second in 10 years, which actually is quite likely not going to be enough. That's one of the challenges in Australia. If you have 50 megabits per second now, as we do in quite a few countries, you'll have a gigabit per second in 10 years from now at the current paces. And there's quite a few cities in the US where for less than $100 a month, you can get 1 gigabit per second. This is the bandwidth. This is the shift which we're seeing. So from these capacities, we're starting to see, for example, driverless cars. where this is just one of the Google cars driving around some of the roads in Silicon Valley. So this is using LiDAR, light radar essentially, to be able to scan all around them. They're already licensed in several states in the United States. So this is the processing power where we can sense things, respond to that, to the point where this is safer than humans driving, who are fallible more than these machines. We're also seeing the ability to translate. So this is just a nice little app, Word Lens. You can just download on your iPhone, hold it in front of text when you're traveling, and it translates it as you read it. You also have other apps available which can translate voice. Again, not quite as good as they need to be, yet if we'll throw in another 60 times processing power, plus more advanced technologies translation, it's starting to get where we will have this natural translation. This is absolutely extraordinary impact when we can communicate with other people by voice, by text, be able to see anything across languages. This means all these pools of expertise that we have being transcended with technology. And perhaps really critically, it's not just about the technologies. What is fundamental is the relationships between humans and machines, and human-machine interfaces are moving ahead, moving away. We had keyboards and mice, then we have got voice recognition, gesture recognition, now we have thought control. This woman is, for the first time in her life, a tetraplegic. She's the first time in 15 years using the thought to be able to take a sip of coffee for herself. We had brain-to-brain communication for the first time just a couple of months ago. The pace of advance is absolutely exponential in how we can, using our thoughts, control machines. And that means that this exponential growth in technology is not just about technology, it's around our capabilities and our ability to impact and control those technologies. But it is also, the technology is not just about the information, it's how that is applied. I was recently lecturing at Singularity University in Silicon Valley, where what they do is they have programs where for 10 weeks they get people in, and the task they give people is do a project which will impact 1 billion people positively within 10 years. One of the things that came out of this is Matanet, as we've seen here, which is a drone which can deliver food, pharmaceuticals and so on to places where there are no roads, which can be flooded, where it's moving. So we're seeing all these layers of the impacts of technologies, and where this again impacts humans is again not just information, is where bioinformatics links information and the exponential change of information to who we are as humans. We looked at those exponential lines before. This is Moore's law, again exponential logarithmic chart. So until 2007, it was pretty much tracking. The pace of growth of the cost of the genome was tracking that of the semiconductors. Now it is far, far greater. So we've seen a drop in cost of over 1,000-fold, around 5,000-fold in the last 6 years, and that's proceeding faster. So this means that we can, there's some optogenetics, we can actually control neural pathways within individual brains. We're able to knock genes out, defective genes out of mice and replace them. So this is where, again, this exponential change is impacting our potential to shape who we are. So looking at work, and I think it's important to realize that work is being transformed and there are some real challenges. I think less so for you than a lot of other people with your skills. But two things. Technology is transforming work. And so that there are many roles and abilities for your capability to be used in transforming work in a positive way, but also understanding that work is changing. We need to understand there are different skills that are going to drive your success moving forward. So first, two things. Work can be done anywhere, and machines are becoming having greater and greater capabilities. This is actually 2001, the first operation performed at a distance, telesurgery. So almost anything can be physically done at distance, not just knowledge work. Rio Tinto in Perth has drivers sitting in Perth, driving trucks which are over 1,000 kilometers from Pilbara. In fact, they drive several trucks at once. They're not going too fast. You can actually drive 3 trucks at once from over 1,000 kilometers away at a distance. It is physical tasks that are being done at a distance as well as the knowledge-based tasks. This, as you may recognize, is Tupac Shakur, performing at the Coachella Festival a couple of years ago. Except he died in 1995. This is in fact a recreation of Tupac Shakur, a projection of him where he's doing a duet with Snoop Dogg. And this is in fact using some old technology. This is in fact not a true hologram, yet there's a number of technologies being used where we can actually have holograms at a distance. So this is a layers beyond this ability to have just a video screen, high quality, high audio, to one where we actually look and can see somebody at a distance, engage, where we can work at somebody and they look like they're there. When I was in Singularity University recently, Philip Rosedale, who set up Second Life, was demonstrating his new product called High Fidelity. This is the next generation of virtual reality. What he's doing and demonstrating here is on stage, this is actually sensing what he's doing on his face and animating his avatar. So in Second Life, you could just move around, stand in front of people. Now we're able, this is the first generation. He's hired some people from Pixar, people who worked on the movie Brave, to look at these facial animations. So you can actually not just, you can actually pick up facial expressions, represent them. These are humans who are having their expressions conveyed at a distance. So the virtual worlds which we'll be able to evoke in that, again, create an extraordinary new levels of how people can work, communicate, collaborate anywhere in the world. The other layer is that robots and artificial intelligence are getting better and better over time. So we know we have robot vacuum cleaners, we've got robot dishwashers. What gets a little bit harder, but we're finally getting to, is things like just being able to fold the laundry. Now, this happens to be quite an expensive machine, and this is actually very highly speeded up, so it's not moving quite as fast as that. But this is the kind of things where we can have the household robots that can do these kind of tasks. So drivers, we've seen they are being challenged. Drivers may not exist. Mercedes has just announced that they have a semi-trailer, a big truck, which is going to drive around without a driver. Without a driver driving it in any case. We have a whole of these tasks which are being done, but also more and more the knowledge tasks which are being transformed. So Watson, you've no doubt heard about, IBM's Watson, which beats game show contestants at Jeopardy in the United States, is just being bought and taken up by ANZ Wealth, amongst other things, to provide robotic advice on our investments. But it's also being used by doctors now, and that's actually a big domain. This is actually Watson being applied, where you've got an iPad app that looks at all of the data, looks through literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of articles to be able to come up with suggested diagnosis. Now, this does not replace a human doctor. It supports a human doctor, and this is actually a critical point. Chess, the first chess grandmaster, was beaten by a computer in 1998. That's a long time ago, and computers have come a long way from that. Yet, the best computers at chess can still be beaten by humans and computers working together. The best chess in the world is played by humans and computers working together. And again, the doctors, together with the technology, can be better doctors than they would be if it was the robot, the artificial intelligence alone, or if it was the human doctor alone. So it is more and more how humans and machines work together where we are pushing the frontiers and be able to push the boundaries forward. So this changing landscape for what work is fundamental. So we looked at these two things. The reality is almost all jobs can be done anywhere. So that is a challenge in Australia, as we can say, well, there's lots of other people around the world who can do the work we do. Yet at the same time, we can do the work that can be done anywhere in the world. We can be, if we are world class, we can play at those games. At the same time, there are more and more. The reality, there's more and more automated coding. There's more and more technology which is done artificially. Yet there are layers of humanity which create value beyond that. So I'd like you to imagine for a moment you're on a desert island and you're cut off from the world. You're not able to look at the internet, to see the email, to read the newspapers, to keep on touch. So how long would it take the value of your expertise to fall by half in your domain? Certainly less than 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, maybe less. Certainly what we can say is that back in the 70s and 80s when you did a degree, you used to be able to live off the fruits of your labors for quite some time. You knew a lot, you were able to apply that. Today, when you get a degree, it is already out of date. So what does have value is deep, world-class expertise. And it must be world-class because everything is connected. You can't just be the best in your domain. Locally, you must be at the right level globally. So world-class expertise in a domain is absolutely valuable. But overlaying that is relationships. Humans are good at relationships. Machines, whilst they're doing some interesting pushing the boundaries a little bit, are not nearly as good. This is something where we can relate to people, we can understand them, we can engage them, and critically, we can collaborate, we can work together. So this is where the corollary of deep expertise is that we must work with other people, we must collaborate with other people. This ability to have deep expertise, relationships, and finally, and the third piece, which is distinctively human, which keeps us miles ahead of the machines, is creativity, the ability to imagine, to pull together things that we've read or things that we've dreamed or conversation we've had into something that is new. And more of technology is in fact deeply creative. And there was an article in the Australian yesterday where Alan Patterson and I were interviewed talking about one of the things is the shift to mobile. Mobile interfaces technology means that we have to have more extraordinary design to be able to fit that all in, to be able to engage with that. The user experience, the design, the creativity which comes into that is in fact a larger and larger part of the technology itself. So pulling these three things together, the expertise, the relationships, and the creativity, leads to what I describe as the living networks. They're like a global brain. The people on the planet are like the neurons in the brain. We are so richly connected, we are literally becoming part of something that is beyond it. This connectivity was only just enabled in the last 5, 6, 7 years as we've engaged in social media, as we send messages out, as we take them, as we use that to feed our insights and our intuitions. So this global brain is absolutely critical. And if we look at this idea of the networks coming to life, I think that it's all of our role to help bring the networks to life, to make the connections that create value between humans, to be able to create those sparks of imagination, of ideas, of possibilities between humans and human brains out of which things comes. And the thing is, if we help bring the networks to life, we just happen to be creating more value for ourselves, of placing ourselves in the center of this value, of this network out of which things are coming. Now, one of the old ideas in skill development is T-shaped skills, as in you have deep specialist expertise. You must have deep expertise within a domain. Yet if that's just all you have, it's not enough. You need to have some breadth as well. And part of that reason for that breadth is so that you can understand what other people are doing, the context for them, so that you can collaborate with them effectively. Moving on beyond that, there is in fact a strategy, and part of your strategy in developing your own career is saying, well, maybe there is more than one area of expertise. Clearly, you can't be world-class experts in 20 domains, but you can say there are two complementary domains. Deakin University has recently released this dual masters in business and data analytics. These two complementary skill sets out of which create this ability to create value. So choosing strategically this depth of world-class expertise you will engage in, together with the cross of the breadth which contains that. And a related thing is this ability to have vision, seeing the big picture, as well as being able to detail. If you just have the vision, then you're just a dreamer. If you just have the detail, you are a commodity and can be replaced by anybody in the world. You need, and whatever your natural inclination, you need to develop the other side to be able so that you can see the vision and the breadth and the possibilities of that, and you can see the detail. Steve Jobs can be defined as a visionary thinker who saw immense detail. Give him something which is a micron out, and he'd see that. He sees the detail, but as well see that vision, and that's the capabilities we need to develop in ourselves. So more learning. Yes, we need credentials. Yes, we need formal study, but the informal study is more and more important. The social learning, the peer learning. Top Coder is a place where the best coders in the world all compete to be able to win prizes, but also to be able to learn from each other. They have competitions where if you lose, you can actually see how the best person did it so that you can learn from them. So this, if you want to be a world-class expert, the only and the real way to do it is find those who are the experts, Follow them on their social media, engage with them, have the conversations, engage in that community. Community is how you build that social learning out of which world-class expertise happens. And that means you cannot be a commodity at that point. You are literally on the leading edge, and as never before, we can be on the leading edge simply by following what's going on online, engaging in the conversations, getting into the slash dots and the other domains. So out of this are opportunities. One of the things is, there's this choice. Do we employ? Do we get paid to work in a job, or do we choose to do it ourselves as an entrepreneur? So my story is this was quite a while ago, and there's different domains. You needed a lot more capital to be able to set up a business. I always knew I wanted to work myself, but when I finished university, having studied physics, I said, all right, well, I want to get into technology. I want to get a job as a programmer. Yet I didn't have the experience. There were no trainee programmer jobs, but there were jobs in computer sales, and thought, this is an opportunity to get in the industry. From there, I had a little more technical bias than some others and got into product management. Then we worked in finance and financial publishing in Sydney and Tokyo and London, before I finally sort of made the leap out to do myself. And it suits the individual. For me, the reason to work for myself is that I can wake up in the morning and choose to do something different. I can go on a different course, use my imagination. Yet there are massive benefits to being employed. Certainly regularity of income is not to be scorned. But also the ability to have the resources to do things on a grand scale. So this is where you can be the detail person and get the support to be able to do that. But this is a choice. But the big question and the answer to which path you go is where you learn the most. John Hagel, who runs the Deloitte Center for the Edge, says that the competition in organizations today is to be able to be the fastest learning organizations and to help your staff learn the most. And if you are going out and working out which companies you should be working for, the answer is whichever company will allow you to learn the fastest. Everything else would be subsidiary. Again, the choice of whether you work for yourself or you work in a startup or whether you work in a big company, all be driven. Where do you learn the most? Because that is the only thing which will drive your future success. And of course, the enjoyment of being engaged in this world. So the opportunities are for yourselves, but they are for the world. This is a nice, beautiful, I think, application called VizWiz. Tom Decker here is blind. He's using this application called VizWiz. He says, I've got 2 socks. I don't know which colors they are. I'm going to take a photo and ask, what is the color? That goes out to a global crowd of people. Within 30 seconds, somebody comes back and says, the one on the left is black. And you can use that in your home if you're a blind person to say, well, which tin can in my cupboard is the baked beans? Other people are lending their eyes. This is a relatively simple application of technology, but one which is transformative of the people who things. We are literally lending our eyes to the people who are in this program. Over 100,000 questions have been answered by blind people, getting people to assist them with their eyes. So the potential to give value through this connectivity is absolutely extraordinary. And what we can use technology for in order to be able to create value for others. But the big issue is the impact of technology. You in this room and the people around you, the people in this industry, have more power than anybody else. We are transforming the planet. And there are some choices to be made around how we do that. There are some deep ethical questions. One of the extraordinary, very important jobs of the future is that of ethicist. We need more and more people in those formal roles to assess what choices should we make. We have the power to create ourselves. We can change our genetics. We can literally change who we are as humans, let alone the impact on the nature of work and the shape of the planet. So this is something where you all must be ethicists. You are making these ethical choices for yourself and the planet at large. If you don't make those choices, others will be making those on your behalf. So the opportunities are to look at the extraordinary power of technology and to shape it in a way which is positive for yourself and others. So we looked at transformation, the changing nature of work, the skills required, and the opportunities. Joseph Campbell is a comparative mythologist who looked at myths around the world. And he saw there was a common story. Every culture in the world has this common story where the hero or heroine is called. They're living their everyday life. They are called by something which is beyond them. They go beyond that. They get people who help them. They get people who block them. Yet they come back with something of value for their community. It is the coming back. It is that discovery. The world of technology moving forward is absolutely one of discovery and one of exploration. We do not know what we will find, but it is our responsibility and our role to be able to go and find that and bring that back and take that to give value to all of us. If we look at the power of technology, which is absolutely going to explode, and I invite you to use that to create value for yourselves and everyone around us. Thank you.
Got some fascinating things to say, hasn't he? That is Ross Dawson, ladies and gentlemen. Our final speaker for the afternoon, a respected CIO with more than 3 decades' experience in the corporate game, but is now an advisor and mentor to many of Australia's top technology and general companies, and also a fellow at the UTS, University of Technology, Sydney, where he lectures higher ed degree students on leadership, strategy and innovation. You may well have seen him on TV, heard him on radio before. Please welcome Rob Livingston.
Thanks, Adam. Hands up for those who feel that their brains are fried at this point in time. It's been a long day, I guess. So I'm going to put a bit of fuel under that brain of yours and try and pick up the pace a bit, because hopefully the message that I'll be delivering to you is going to be of some value to you. If not you, maybe your parents or uncles, aunts, etc. The name of the game these days is career resilience, because resilience gives you options. And to really build on the previous speakers, things are moving faster. If you look at the rate of change, and given the fact that, you know, from an evolutionary perspective, our brains are still cave era, the rate of change is becoming exponentially faster. So we now shifted out of the knowledge era into the innovation era, and even then that is, that's moving pretty quickly. So if we look at where we sit in terms of our own careers, and I'm not talking about a job here because this is a career, there's a range of influences which all come to bear on what you do in your career. Starting, with all of these, and this is only a smattering of names just to put it on around a circle, but effectively everything out there in a disruptive new technologies, for example. You've got global influences, national, industry, and employer, and so it comes down to you. So what does that mean? Technologies in and of themselves are not intrinsically disruptive from my perspective. It is only when you combine and apply those that they become disruptive. And in fact, it's not always the new technologies that are disruptive. You can take existing artifacts and existing technologies and use them in innovative ways, and they end up with a completely disruptive consequence. So essentially, all of these influences have a wash across modern society. So I'd like to introduce the concept of a digital democracy pyramid. Now try saying that after a few glasses of wine. But the bottom line is, at the bottom of this pyramid that I'm suggesting, is we have technology. Now we've all heard about the democratization or consumerization of technology. Everyone's got a mobile device which has got the power of a massive data center of 10 or 20 years ago. But essentially, everyone has got access to information technologies that previous generations would have only dreamed of. We also have the ability to access information from anywhere in a variety of forms. Based on top of that, we've got knowledge. So, we all know people are increasingly sharing their knowledge and expertise around the world. Social media is just the trigger, but essentially the ability to be able to share your expertise and provide your expertise in a variety of forms. On top of that relates to skill. Now this is where it becomes important to start encroaching on careers, and within careers also encroaching on organisations, and also through organisations how the organisations are structured. So when it comes to individual skills, essentially has the potential to level the playing field. I've got a book coming out. It's being launched on Monday. So just a bit of a segue onto that. In the book, I've mentioned about the crevasse-filled level playing field. So you see this level playing field out there. It's all great. Technology is a leveler, but there's lots of crevasses in there. So the issue is trying to navigate through that particular environment. So essentially, with the modern technologies and the business structures, plus globalization, plus all those other influences, the ability to port skills and transport skills globally is fundamentally shaping not just IT, but many other industries as well. If you look at, we'll talk about in knowledge industries, you talk about lawyers, you talk about architects, you talk about many of the classic professions, radiologists, for example. There's a lot of professions where these jobs are being done in low-cost countries, which is a good thing for them because it gives them a better life opportunity to live a better lifestyle, but also erodes the earning potential of people in incumbent traditional environments. So when it comes to your career, the key thing is to identify both the risks and opportunities, because it's two edges of the same coin. What are the risks and opportunities from this effect? So the dilemma of a career specialist is one which is worth considering, especially here. And we from an ICT perspective, we could be a specialist in any domain of expertise. Technical specialist, you could be an engineer, you could be an architect, you could be a legal specialist or whatever, but you're a high level of expertise in a narrow domain, is that you're subject primarily to the laws of supply and demand. So if there's a large number of people, think globalization out there, that are university trained, lots of experience, have worked in and have got international experience but are not located in your country, who can deliver and project those services globally, what effect does that do in terms of commoditization of the specialization skills? So that specialization is no longer specialization, it becomes a commodity. So essentially during your career, and most of you, I guess at the start of your career, if you take your, roll your movie forward 10, 15, 20 years hence, what shape is your career going to be in, and how can you ensure that your career is resilient? By resilience, it means be able to cope with all the changes that Ross has suggested and others in terms of being able to survive and thrive in the long term. So how do we face an essentially increasingly uncertain future? And my presentation here essentially could cover to any audience, not specifically this, but given the fact that most people here are in one way, shape or form driving the technology changes, it's much more pertinent. At the heart of it, and this is the key payload in the book that I'm launching on Monday, is that as an employee, and as opposed to an entrepreneur, or if you have your own money in your own business, if you're an employee, whether you're an executive or starting as at the bottom of the food chain, as it were, if you were to think of your career as your business, essentially you have one client, and that client is called your employer. And if you have a resilient career, that employer will be your employer of choice, not necessity. So the fundamental premise is that your career lasts a lifetime, whereas your job does not. And that if you consider that, what is your investment strategy in your business, and your business being your career, what is your investment strategy? Is some of the assumptions that we make, irrespective of whether you're in IT or any other profession or industry, what are the assumptions about your investment, going to university, going to work in a particular industry? Is it assuming that you're going to benefit from that investment? So the question is, the assumptions that you make about your business strategy, about your career, need to be considered. And add on top of this, the great digital disruptor in that washing machine of volatility and change. Change is the norm. Disruption is the norm. One of the key differentiators is that if you see yourself as running your own business called your career, you instinctively will start developing the necessary skills that extend far beyond what you do from a technology, from a core competency point of view. So essentially it's developing and consciously developing those complementary and supplementary skills that add to your career, that delivers options. Because resilience is a function of the number of options you have. If you only have one job and there's none others out there, you have no options. If you've got 3 or 4 alternates, then you have options, and that means resilience. So that's the fundamental premise that I'm suggesting that you may want to consider. So for those that are those that are at university or about to start or on the early stage of career, consider this as a stepping stone. The stepping stone could in fact be an iceberg. That iceberg could melt in the next 12 months, or it could be there in 20 years' time. Whichever way it is, understanding that essentially this is a stepping stone, is that that will lead on to other things. The other key thing is that the advice you might get from your parents and other people with grey hairs and look a bit more sort of senior, discount that to a certain extent, because the key thing is to determine your own environment in the world we're living in now, draw from the experience of others as needed. So when faced with disruptive innovation, best practice, and if you look at organisations that have got best practice methodologies, best practice frameworks, etc., change the rules of the jungle, the best practice may in fact not be best practice. So that's something to consider with some more conventional approaches to employment. So become your own expert is probably the way to consider, and this is just a line of thinking, and continuously and constantly validate that assumptions that you've made about your changing environment. So, and I think Ross touched on this earlier, one of the key things is to read widely and wisely, but also seek objective opinions to help you broaden your perspective. So if you look at some sources, I mean, I have no interest in these, but I write articles for The Conversation, which is completely a-financial. There's no sort of, it's funded by universities. There's all kinds of topics on there from immigration through to, technology, through to changing, landscapes of economies and whatever. But essentially, the more you read trusted sources that are not paid for by vendors that give you some particular angle, the better off you're able to form your own opinions. So stress test your career assumptions, and also running through scenarios. And what if this happened? So all of this requires some conscious effort to do, and that goes back to the metaphor of investing in your career. What are you thinking about now that's going to get you to the next point? The key is to determine have an approach to evaluating a over-the-horizon radar capability. So you wish to try and see and identify where the small changes are happening before they hit you and profoundly affect your career and your options in that ride. At the end of the day, all the experts that have been right in the past may not be right in the past, but if we consider this, for example, as projection from a number of years ago, this was a projection of what a home computer would like in 2004. Now, that may well have been the case at that point in time, but if you look at the rate of change of that era to what we have now, it is absolutely profound. So on that note, I'd like to say I'm around afterwards for any questions, and also I'm doing a masterclass tomorrow, so I'm not sure if the numbers are fully subscribed on that. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the conference.
No worries. Thank you very much. Yes, sorry, Rob, your masterclass is absolutely full. I'll say something about the masterclasses again in just a couple of seconds. But there we go, the end of our second set of speakers in our afternoon stream. A little bit of a YITCON history we've made here over the last couple of hours. The first time we've taken YITCON to all around the world. So a big hello and goodbye to our friends in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, India, and at other venues around Australia. What we're going to do now is make our way downstairs to enjoy some well-earned drinks and nibbles and what we like to call networking. Yes, exactly, in the industry. That's going to go until about 7:30. There's a guest presenter and some musical entertainment as well. A special treat at the end of the session, so make sure you stay around until the end. I do have to mention one thing, because this is a youth IT conference, the people running the event downstairs serving alcohol are obliged to do the occasional random check of ID. So do make sure you've got your photo ID with you. And if you're asked, and if you're one of the people who's laughing right now at the thought of it, be flattered if you're asked to show your ID. Because as irritating as it is, you'll get to my age one day when they don't ask anymore. And you just sort of hang around going, do you want to, what about, mate? No, okay, I'll just be over there drinking in the corner. So please make sure you've got your ID handy. You might be asked to show some. Don't go anyway, don't run down for the drinks yet just yet, people. If you are not coming along tonight, you do need to know a couple of things. We start at 8:45 tomorrow, including the PayPal Masterclass. Now, the Masterclasses have proved very popular. A couple of them are completely full. So if you have registered for a Masterclass and you're now not going to go, that's completely fine. Can you let us know? Because if it is one of the ones that is completely full, it might free up a spot in that masterclass. Just let the organisers know if you're not planning. Tell them down at the front desk. And make sure you've downloaded YITCON Guru so you can go treasure hunting tomorrow. Who's already done that? Round of applause if you've already downloaded the YITCON Guru, yes? Excellent, yeah, good. That's it, they're keen. Why are they so excited? Because they've got a head start in winning the thousands of dollars worth of prizes, including that Samsung camera. You have to have downloaded to do that. So let's go downstairs and enjoy our networking session. Can we have a round of applause, please, for all the speakers in that final session? That was just great. See you downstairs in a few minutes.